Good evening, and welcome to Polecast number 59, SJWs versus the World. I'm your host, Brian, and I am joined by Scott and Mike. Hopefully, Hannah will be along shortly. If not, you are dead to us.
Again?
No, Hannah knows that we love her, but she's dead to us.
Yeah, she's dead to us, definitely.
Definitely. All right, so this week we got a few stories lined up, but first, without further ado, we're going to jump into the cringe zerker because, holy crap, there has been a lot of really interesting feminist media popping up that is just, I don't even know what to call it. And so I think it needs to be addressed. So this first one, or this one that we're going to look at, is for a new series called Killjoy. And I'm going to make sure you guys can see that. So let me present to everyone and put it on the screen. All right. And Killjoy is described as a feminist comedy web series about pissed off women fighting oppression one rant at a time. And I got to tell you, I'm not even sure what it's about. So, well, I am, but you'll see what I mean. This is definitely cringeworthy because I don't follow. Can you guys see the screen right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good on my end.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna pause it. I have like specific points where I need to pause it, so you guys can chime in with comments. Let's get this ball rolling.
That movie is so good. Those guys are so funny.
Actually, that movie sucks.
Sorry, did you say something, sweetheart?
I said it sucks.
All right, I'm just pausing it for the banana.
Can't tell which way it's going. If you came in fresh, you wouldn't be able to tell which way it's going, right? You can't tell who it's satirizing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, and don't they call this mansplaining what she's doing right now?
No, women can't mansplain.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
vagina-splain then, maybe?
It's vag-splaining.
That's splaining. There you go. Yeah.
Clam-splaining.
Oh, God, you always say clam. That's so gross.
I love that word. Clam is great. I want to thank Bill Burr for being the one who coined it, or at least when I heard him say it.
Right.
All right, this is clam-splaining, but yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Let's hear what she has to say. Why does it suck? What this movie that we don't even know about? Mike, you're going to say
we can't really take her word for anything. I mean, she no longer has the power of agency, given that she's drunk some wine there.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Fine point, sir. Fine point.
In fact, you're raping her by talking to her, gentlemen.
All right, let's go.
Four mediocre white men complain about women who they don't go down on. And then they find a tiger, who's also a man.
Are you talking to us? You know, women actually dislike receiving oral sex. Did you know that?
Just pausing for the banana. Again, I still, it's hard to tell what this is satirizing.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's continue.
Do not mansplain my body.
Oh, no.
Who are you?
A woman who gets paid less than you for doing the exact same job.
Oh, you're also...
All right, I'm just pausing for the thing. See, this is like it's hard to respond to. This is the thing about
That was
what?
That was the praise Jesus. That was the praise Jesus moment. That's the moment in the kids' sort of Bible show where they turn to the camera and say Psalms 21:4. Here's the scripture bit. Turn your face to the camera and do the scripture.
Well, it could be said that these people are like religious fanatics, so...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let's go back a little bit. I want to see the Jesus clip again.
Gets paid less than you for doing the exact same job.
Oh, you're also a fur trader?
I don't know what that means.
That's a good joke. That's
his job. Yeah, he's a fur trader.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
I've been trying to think of so many responses to that, and this motherfucker done it. Ding! I like you.
See, that was pretty good then. I want to hear that again. That was good. I'm gonna go back just a little.
A woman who gets paid less than you for doing the exact same job.
Oh, you're also a fur trader?
How about a little less slut-shaming and more woman respect?
Wait, hold on. Wait, slut shaming. When the fuck did that happen?
I don't know. It's gotten to the point where the buzzwords have transcended language, and you can just put them in a sentence, and it basically creates a reaction.
You can just say anything you want, and it just because by the virtue of having said it, it makes it true. This is amazing.
You can just say, stop mansplaining, and then, you have to accept it as fact, just like the slut shaming that just happened.
Holy shit!
Apparently, asking if a woman is also a fur trader is slut shaming.
Right?
Unless
wait,
her
is that
definition of fur trader is different from his.
Yeah.
It's wait. Kind of lesbian euphemism.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is this like the new thing for it's no longer carpet muncher, it's fur trader? What the fuck? This is brilliant. I love this show already.
Okay. Here we go.
I respect women. That's why I always tell them to smile so much. I want them to be happy. Yeah, you look prettier when you smile.
You look pretty.
I want to go back a little bit. I love the way this guy says smile. You look prettier when you smile. Listen to him.
I want them to be happy. Yeah, you look prettier when you smile.
You look prettier if you shut up.
From?
A uterus. Heard of it? Not all women have one. Did you know that? I didn't think so. Maybe you should wash a dish. Read a book. Never speak words again.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, wash a dish, read a book, never speak words again.
Yeah.
That you might learn something about women?
And not all women have a uterus.
And apparently not all women have a uterus.
Yeah.
This is like, if this is comedy.
Oh, it is.
This
obviously.
Is supposed to be comedy.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right.
Whoa, why are you women all so upset? Are you bleeding?
Yeah,
Oh.
right through my pants.
How many of you are there?
I'm just doing this for the banana. Somebody
Okay.
else say something.
We lost Mike. Oh, now he's back.
Oh, we lost Mike. Mike!
But he's back, though.
Yeah, I'm using a different computer with a different. It doesn't matter.
Oh, did you miss anything? I mean, aside from no, but
I was just sat here trying to think of funny shit and not thinking of anything anyway. So yeah, carry on.
Well, see, like, what does it mean when a video that's meant to be funny causes a vacuum of humor in actual comedians that watch it? What is the?
Well, do you know, they might actually be just looking at this stuff and going, "Hey, it is absurd, isn't it? So let's just do something that's absurd."
Well, maybe, but I did a little research into the person who's producing this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her once this video is over. By the way, the person who produced this is the woman in blue, which, by the way, is the only person that's not wearing a warm color in this whole video, it seems. Or at least one that, yeah. Because everyone else kind of blends in. They're like wearing browns and reds and,
Earth tones.
And she's wearing blue.
Whoa, why are you women all so upset?
Yeah, her.
Bleeding?
Yeah, right through my pants.
How many of you are there?
3 billion. Half the population, and we live longer. Is your privilege nervous? Does our powers scare you?
Just pausing it for the banana.
What? See,
Yeah, we're the ones with privilege, though.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, please continue. You know what? The only value I'm seeing in this right now is to turn this into a drinking game. When basically whenever they say something stupid or cringy, you drink because I mean, Christ, in like 2 minutes and 13 seconds, you're gonna be wasted.
Oh, you're gonna be dead.
Oh yeah, I've been playing that. I've already been playing that as it happens.
I love you.
Just accidentally.
If you're,
They're bound to cross over.
Right? Yeah,
you're
yeah.
just drinking while watching this, you're playing the game.
Oh my god.
Like,
Amazing.
Yep.
even if it's a
That's what I'm
constant
doing.
stream. Okay.
Honestly, I feel like I don't have any privilege.
It's harder than ever to be a
Straight white male. Yes.
Okay, so apparently this is meant to be funny and ironic.
Excuse me?
We're gonna run away now.
Killjoy. Comedy series about pissed off women fighting oppression one rant at a time. Coming to a frat house near you.
That was the end of the video.
That was hilarious.
Oh, it was so hilarious.
Oh gosh.
So funny.
The comedies. There were so many comedies in that video that I just saw.
There were, yes,
many.
it had all the comedies.
It had all of the comedies. It had all
So,
the laughs. Ha 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 ha.
That was tough.
Yeah.
So the woman who produced that is actually a stand-up comedian named Jess Beaulieu. I'm not kidding. She's a stand-up comedian. I watched one of her shows after I watched that video because I found out who she was. And I was like, oh, let me see if this woman's funny. Not funny at all. I know, big shocker. Giant
Are you sure,
twist.
Brian? Are you sure?
The comedian's not funny.
Are you sure it's just not your privilege?
Mm,
Because it might have been your privilege.
well, maybe the comedy.
Or
is
maybe
too-
you're scared of their privilege.
I am.
Or both and neither. Ah.
I am both frightened and privileged
There you go.
at the same time.
How does your white male privilege make you feel about that, Brian?
I don't know. Confused.
Because I know you're not white, but that's beside the point.
Well, I'm white when it's convenient. I mean,
You actually left your white privilege behind somewhere.
2/3 of it. Okay, so I went to her. So I looked her up, and she has a Tumblr.
Oh, of course. Why wouldn't she?
Yeah. I mean, so I want to take a look. Well, you know what? I'm not gonna put her Tumblr on the screen because there's some naughty bits. But apparently, I've learned that she's a huge fan of Beyonce, and she likes. When it comes to men, the only picture she has is of homosexual men. So she's totally cool with them. But the thing that really stands out is she has a quote. A feminist quote. I don't know the name of the person who put it, but she reblogged it and loved it. And this is what it reads, and I think this is actually very telling. Okay, first off, her Tumblr says, Jess Beaulieu, comedian, writer, feminist. Hey, I'm Jess. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I like the cunnilingus. I co-host the Crimson Wave, a podcast about periods. Warning, this blog may be shocking if you are my mother. And yeah, her comedy bit was about her getting her period and about her mother being really raised religiously and stuff like that. So yeah, she's really mad at religious people and the usual suspects that I noticed that feminists tend to be angry at, especially the sex positive ones like Lacey Green. But here's the blog post that I thought was the most interesting that she shared. My feminism has nothing to do with men. It is not defined as equality for all genders. It isn't even about equality. I don't want to be equal with men because I don't like or want this patriarchy men have. My feminism is about liberation for all women and an end of the oppression of all women, including women of color, immigrants, lesbians, and trans women. Now, just to throw it in there, if it says immigrants, this is probably a relatively recent quote, I think.
Yeah.
It is about equity, doing what is necessary to ensure everyone has a quality standard of life, has their human rights respected, and is free from oppression. I am not into definitions of feminism that are aimed at making feminism appear non-threatening to men. It is threatening to men, and it should be. So, she produced that trailer.
Did you say she's from Iraq, I believe, is where
No,
you said she's based at?
Toronto, Canada.
Oh, that's weird because all those things that she said she's trying to get, I'm pretty sure she already has. I mean, I could be mistaken because I am just a mansplaining white cis heterosexual blah 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 blah. But I'm pretty sure she has all those things. I mean, please step in and tell me I'm wrong at any time, but you know.
All I heard there was fucking our mother who art in heaven, blah blah blah. The power and the glory, our women.
Yeah. She no. So she's. This is like when you think about feminists that say, feminism is just about equality, and that's what it's supposed to be. There are people like this that have pretty big YouTube channels that are starting web series that are also, professional comedians that believe that this attitude, this, men should be threatened by us, is probably closer to the mainstream, at least among the ones that actually have some ability to affect policy and change, and not the ones that are just sitting there like in their Starbucks saying, "Oh no, it's just about equality." Though, I mean, that's fine, but you're not doing anything. You're not. I'm not worried about you. So, but yeah, that was the cringe zerker. I can't even fathom that it's actually meant to be a serious feminist video, but it was. You can't tell what it's satirizing, but when you look at who the woman is, she clearly has a bone to pick with guys, and so I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, this can't be followed. I apologize for sharing this.
I'm sorry. I wish I had more scathing things to say, but this is just kind of dumb.
I suppose it's important that we document it.
Yeah.
There's a file for it somewhere. I can't describe the emotional state that it produces, so I don't even know what to file it as. Unknown.
Wait, you mean like the circular file? You mean that kind of file? The bin, as it were?
Yeah, like a file cabinet.
No, I meant like a trash can. The circular file, the bin, the trash can.
Yes, one of those.
I don't know. This just seems like another example of somebody low information creating something that doesn't really stand up to scrutiny when you actually dig it down and look at it like with a hard lens. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, whatever. Everybody's entitled to have their opinions. They can say what they want. That's the great thing about our society. But right now, there's so many people saying so much dumb stuff. It's becoming like I can't remember who it was that said it. I think it was Frank Luntz. He's this Republican opinion maker on the Republican Party side, and he does this thing where he gets these people to just keep repeating the same lies on television, like they go on Meet the Press or they go on Fox News, they go on This Week with David Brinkley or whatever the fuck the shows. I don't even know if that exists anymore, but because I'm old. But they go on these shows and they keep repeating these talking points. And it gets to the point where people are like, oh, well, we saw it on TV, so it must be true. And that's kind of like how I feel about these kind of things when I see these comedy routines or whatever you want to call them. It's like I feel like there's a big chunk of the population that doesn't have access to the right information or doesn't have access to the kind of things that you or I or Mike would understand and know because we're kind of in it, so to speak. And they keep hearing these things over and over and over again, and it feels like an indoctrination through repetition kind of thing, where they just keep telling these people that all these things are happening, and then at one point there's going to be these people, and they're going to be like, "Wait a minute, women are being oppressed." And it's just like, it's just that's kind of what this feels like. It's just like, so yeah. I mean, thankfully there's people like Mike and the Honey Badgers and lots and lots of other people who are speaking out against this kind of nonsense because this is nonsense.
Glamour plus politics doesn't equal comedy. That seems to be what they're doing here. A lot of female comedians, because this is largely why there aren't many female comedians, because they don't like being ugly. They don't like coming across as ugly or silly. So they get it into their heads that if they do something just political minded with an attitude, then they can pull off glamorous and funny at the same time. But it doesn't work. You'll notice there's nothing funny about it.
No. I think the best thing that could ever happen to that video is that somebody brilliant comes along and turns it into a great YouTube poop. I think that's what has to happen to that. with
Or
that
just
guy
somebody
saying
takes it and mirrors it.
"smile" in it.
Or how about
Smile.
somebody comes along and they actually mirror it? They make the same video shot for shot, but they switch the roles around and they point out the absurdity of the situation and the things that are being said.
They always have more money than us. they can always put proper sketches together, like whooshy cameras and shit.
Right.
Yeah. Gosh, what a
Fancy editing. Damn them.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't. Okay, let's go into the first story because that literally, like, that's just guys that are watching. I don't know what do you make of it? It just doesn't. I don't know. I can't speak. It's not funny. I don't know what it's trying to say. I don't know if it's parody. I don't know what it is. It's just bad. That's all I know.
Well, it certainly did its job in that it killed all the joy. I mean, because I felt very joyless while watching it, so there was that.
It was Killjoy. It accomplished its goal.
Yeah, there was no fun feelings to be had while watching that, other than just shaking my head and be like, "What the fuck am I watching?" It's like, hey.
This is
The fur trader joke was pretty good. I enjoyed that.
No, the fur trader joke was pretty good. Either that, maybe Alaskan crab fisherman would be another one that you could use.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Anyway, so let's get into the first story.
Oh, you're a pimp too.
Oh yeah, are you also a pimp? Famke Janssen blames Hollywood sexism and ageism for X-Men replacement. Yeah.
Right, excuse me. So weird.
I know.
Continue.
With Captain America Civil War on the brain, a lot of us may have forgotten the X-Men Apocalypse is coming out 3 weeks after. In this film, we are getting younger versions of the franchise classic characters, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Storm, and Archangel. However, one particular character has caused some controversy this past week. The character of Jean Grey is currently being portrayed by 20-year-old Sophie Turner, who played Sansa Stark on Game of Thrones. However, prior to this movie, this character has been played by now 51-year-old Famke Janssen. In this past week, Janssen blamed her failure to be cast in the new X-Men movie on Hollywood's sexist agenda towards older women. Is there any truth to this allegation? Let's take a look at the facts. All right. So, all right, I want to throw in there that I do not believe that Famke Janssen actually thinks that she's being discriminated against. I honestly don't. I think that secretly she knows that it's impractical for a 50-year-old woman to play a 20-year-old character. I mean, if you look really, really young for your age, you can probably pull it off. But I doubt it. I mean, like, I don't think that that's the reason. And besides, Famke Janssen is no longer as bankable as the woman playing Sansa Stark from Game of Thrones, right? Like, that's Sophie Turner is, I think, a bigger deal and more of an up-and-comer. So there are a few reasons why decisions get made in Hollywood, and I seriously doubt that sexism and ageism is among those reasons.
Oh, come on, Brian, please, just stop. You're mansplaining again.
I know.
My God, have you no compassion for this woman who is 51 years old and wants to play an 18-year-old character? Oh my God, this is so dumb. This is just another in a long line of controversies. It's just like, I mean, I love Famke Janssen. I would love to do wonderful sexual things with her. But the fact is, she can't play a teenager. And if she is, she must have been fucking drunk or high when she said this or she's just, oh God, or she's incredibly dumb. Well, I don't know what it is, but she obviously knows that she can't play a fucking teenager. I mean, come on, this is just fucking ridiculous. So,
that's what I'm saying. She has to know, like, in her gut that this is bullshit herself because it's so out there. Plus, not only are we talking about, like, this person who, is no longer the it girl, because she probably was back then. I remember in GoldenEye, and I was like, ooh, who's this?
Oh, yeah.
But these days it's just like she was in, like, the Taken movies, which I'm sorry, but after the first one, that tanked quick as fuck. And it's just time to pass the torch. Besides, you don't see James Marsden trying to, like, you know, he's not moaning about not getting to play an 18-year-old Cyclops when he's clearly, like, in his 40s and 50s himself, probably. I don't really know his age, but
Yeah.
it's just dumb.
Well, it was like earlier we were talking about how. Well, okay, I'm going to spoil the latest trailer if you haven't seen it yet. Well, cry me a river in the comments. But in the trailer, the newest trailer, at the end of it, you see it. You know, you see fucking this hand come out with these claws, and you know it's Wolverine. And I'm surprised, but it's Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine. But there's context there. Okay, the fact is that Wolverine is almost. Well, he's not quite immortal, but he's ageless to the point where he can contextually fit into these movies in different time periods, whereas Femke Johnson cannot.
No. Aside from the fact that, again, going back to just the practical money-making aspect of it, Hugh Jackman puts asses in seats.
Right.
You know, there was one of my friends was kind of upset that in the trailer for this X-Men movie, they also have Mystique leading the X-Men. Was it Jennifer Lawrence, right? Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, that isn't really, why would they do that when the Cyclops is right there? You know, and I was like, well, Jennifer Lawrence puts asses in seats too. Yeah. You know, like, I mean, I wasn't crazy about it. I don't think it really makes a lot of sense, but...
But there is precedent within the comics themselves, though, that things like this have happened in the comics. So this is not outside the bounds of reality when you're talking about this comic universe, because this has, at various points within the X-Men comics, actually happened. So it makes sense in that regard. So.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing too about Famke, I think that part of it is that she wants work. She wants to reprise the role. And she has been able to in small parts, like she was in the last Wolverine film in some of the dream sequences, and she was at the end of Days of Future Past. But she was still moaning about it. And I was just telling you this before the show that, and it bears repeating though, another person who was at the end of Days of Future Past was one of my favorite little bits is when Beast, who's being played by Kelsey Grammer, shows up. And he says, you know, good morning, Logan. You know, and the guy got into the Beast makeup, which takes hours and hours to put on, just so that he can walk and say one line of dialogue and disappear. They literally did not have to do that at all, but they did. Yep. And you know, and Kelsey was completely grateful. He loved doing that, even if he just got it for just that moment. And what great casting that is too. But you know, some people are just going to be prima donnas or whatever, it seems.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's really not much else to add except, you know, there's a whole host of reasons why Famke wouldn't make sense to be in the movie. So sorry, lady. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next story, and this is. Was Melissa Click fired because she was white? Oh man. All right. So, former University
I've seen this in 4 different titles, but I haven't read the story yet.
Oh,
so
you don't know the story.
This is my first time hearing the explanation.
All right.
As to how this even played out, because I'm stumped as to how.
Yes.
Tell me.
So, all right. Was Melissa Click fired because she was white? Former University of Missouri professor Melissa, I need some muscle over here, Click, was recently let go from her position due to being caught on camera harassing a student reporter because he had the audacity to exercise the right to occupy a public space. However, she continues to try and refute that reality, as this past week she told the Chronicle of Higher Education that Mizzou actually wanted to send the message that the university and the state wouldn't tolerate black people standing up to white people. This is all about racial politics. I'm a white lady. I'm an easy target. The Chronicle spent a day following around Click, during which she was noticed and greeted by African-American supporters. Black people love me, she explained. In the future, let these comments be used as a case study for how the regressive brain works. Do you want a little bit more information about this? Max Darrett has written up a nice little bit. So, Melissa, baby, the reason why you were fired has nothing to do with the color of your skin. You are not a martyr. The college isn't trying to go after black people through you. You physically harassed a reporter with high-functioning autism and figuratively spit on his First Amendment rights when you verbally mocked him. You cannot pull the shaggy defense and say, it wasn't me, when there is video evidence of your salacious behavior. Physical harassment is wrong. Denying somebody their ability to exercise their First Amendment rights is wrong. You can't justify your actions against a kid who is standing there with a video camera, not harming anybody, not saying anything to anybody, just standing there. The ends never justify the means. Get that through your ginger skull. What you did was wrong. I don't know what else to add to this beyond the obvious and what we already know about you. You have done nothing to benefit the lives of black people. You have done nothing to benefit the educational atmosphere of Mizzou. Attendance at this university is down 20% because of self-righteous tyrants like yourself. Not only that, but I would also like to add that Mizzou has closed, I believe, 2 frat houses. So it's the university is actually it's actually taken a lot of damage from this. It looks like Mizzou lost this one, bro. So yeah, that's essentially the Melissa Click story. It's just her doing some damage control and saying the reason why she got fired is not because of her treatment of students in the press, but it's because she's a martyr and she was taking one for the team. Because remember, Mizzou's goal was to essentially have more people of color in faculty, and that they felt that was necessary in order for a more equal environment and one that would be that the black students there would feel safer, attending.
So here's the thing. I'm assuming, and I know the answer to this question, but I am assuming that Melissa Click is not a professor of law or was not a professor of law at Mizzou.
Absolutely
Is that
not.
A correct assumption?
No, she was a professor of communications and essentially she was like a journalism professor,
right.
Which is ironic.
Which is also ironic. But here's the thing. What she did in that video is not legal. Mm-mm. She was inciting violence against a person. And that is probably, I'm going to say that's probably good enough grounds for dismissal in and of itself. The other stuff that she did notwithstanding. So this is just another example of somebody trying to play a martyr, and not very well either. So it's just like this is anybody that can look at this just a cursory glance can tell this is just bullshit. Melissa Click got fired because she tried to incite violence against somebody. Which is just disgusting, just flatly. But I mean, the fact that she was, like you said, she was a journalism professor or teacher or whatever.
Yeah, her thesis, I think, was or one of her class syllabi things had something to do with Twilight.
Yeah, she's
Twilight.
A professor of Twilight. Yeah.
At what point do we blame the people who hired her in the first place, or blame the people who created that course in the first place? There's no one to blame. This shit grew out of the ground like the fucking smoke monster. Just one generation at a time. Just the generation before Melissa Click was only half as crazy, so they couldn't have known.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it would be like Turtles all the way down with Melissa Click to find out where that fucking came from. So. She's a martyr. That's the reason. It's not us. It's her.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, we're booking through these stories. Last story, but this one could cause the most discussion. This is the main one, because I found this super interesting. Okay. So, social justice warriors versus the world. All right. So yesterday, Milo Yiannopoulos, Christina Hoff Sommers, and Steven Crowder had a joint panel at the University of Massachusetts. And you can watch a video of this online. I believe it's on Milo Yiannopoulos' YouTube channel. And if you haven't seen it yet, I recommend it. I don't know about any of you, but watching that video and hearing members of the audience scream at the 3 panelists from start to end made me come to the realization that this really is a culture war. It's almost fitting that movies such as Batman vs. Superman or Captain America Civil War are coming out now. The divisiveness and the frustration felt by both sides of an ideological conflict are mirrored in those movies and in our modern-day reality. Every day, it is almost like the sides are not only getting bigger, but more congruent in their numbers. Issues of censorship and authoritarianism are creeping past the safe barrier of the computer screen and into our workplaces, our schools, and our dinner conversations. The behavior of overzealous ideologues can no longer be kept at arm's length. It is figuratively and literally screaming in our faces, demanding that you choose a side. This is no longer limited to heated exchanges on the internet involving familiar names like Milo and Sargon or Internet Aristocrat, facing off against people like Steve Shives, Kate Smurthwaite, Kate Brooks. Over the past couple of months, we have seen high-profile celebrities make comments about this ideological crusade between libertarians and authoritarians. Comedian Stephen Fry spoke out on the Rubin Report. Stephen Fry! About his contempt for PC culture. Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins compared social justice warriors to Maoists, calling them, quote, weaponized zombies. Actress Jodie Foster and director Julie Taymor claimed that there was an oversimplification of the gender equality issue in Hollywood, and they were sick of it. Many high-profile individuals of diverse ethnic and intellectual backgrounds are banding together. One side is saying that everything is problematic, while the other side is saying, we are sick of you pushing this stuff on us. Stop. And the most disturbing element of this discussion is one that we don't like to acknowledge. This is only going to keep getting worse. If Milo's dangerous faggot tour and its escalating response are a useful metric, we will have a long way to go. After all, he, like us, is just getting started. So we are here to discuss what specific events might be happening that are causing artists and comedians and other people in the media and in new media, in journalism, and even in academia and the professional and intellectual circles are finally speaking out. So that's the setup. Yeah, like when I was watching the video last night, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but if you haven't, I definitely you should check it out. I was watching that video last night while I was doing some artwork, and I saw Steven Crowder, Milo, and Christina talking, and these students were shouting at him like to get out, calling him racist, calling him bigots, sexist, you know, fake feminists, all this other shit throughout the whole thing. And I was thinking, I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone. I am finding more in common with people like Steven Crowder than I ever thought I would. Isn't that crazy? I mean, obviously, and I shouldn't have to say this, and it actually kind of annoys me when people say, I don't agree with everything this person says, but I don't need to say that. Obviously, you don't agree with everything anybody says. If you do, then you're not thinking for yourself. But in the case of Crowder, you know, I started like watching his videos, and I was listening to him, and you know, even though again our politics aren't the same, he doesn't back down, and he makes good arguments for stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, all right, that's reasonable. And you know what? I get it. And even if I ultimately still don't land on your, you know, your position, I know how you got there, and I think it's fair. And at the same time, and most importantly, people like Crowder and Milo don't force their opinions on you. They don't say you have to do this. They say this is why I think you're wrong, or this is why I believe what I believe. Even those three on that stage don't agree with each other on stuff. If you watch that video, you know, when Milo says feminism is cancer, thank you, Christina Hoff Sommers is like, well, I don't know. I think I can save it, right? Fair enough. I hope that you do, right? And Crowder and Milo don't agree on everything either. Because, you know, Crowder is more of a Ted Cruz fan. Milo's all about Donald Trump. So none of them, and like, what's her name? Christina Hoff Sommers is actually, she says she likes Hillary. So they don't agree on stuff, but they can still stand together and talk about this shit. Blows my mind. I'm like, where? This is bizarro world. I just didn't think that, you know, things could be that way. And that's just in that case. But then, you know, when you think about, like, I saw, you know, Stephen Fry, and he only had a few minutes to spare with Dave Rubin, and they talked it out. And Dave Rubin is like, you know, he's making enormous strides since leaving the Young Turks. Thank fucking God, dude, you dodged a bullet on that one. Which, by the way, you know, for whatever reason, Dave Rubin still eludes. He won't talk about what happened between him and the Young Turks, but the more I see of his stuff, I can see that there's definite ideological reasons that he no longer works with them.
Well, I mean, you could see that on air when they were doing the shows, and like him and Sank would start clashing just live on air. It's just like it was pretty obvious there were some pretty deep divisions, just just on a fundamental level.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think those things kind of grew the more that Ruben was just like, "Wow, Jake Yeager's kind of a cunt."
Yeah.
He kind of realizes, like, you know what, this seemed like a good idea at the time, but maybe this isn't such a good deal to be around these people. Because, I mean, hell, I mean, just to get off point just really quickly, I mean, if you were following the Young Turks for like the last 5 years, you could see how they became more of a groupthink kind of thing over time. I mean, they started off being very, I was like, all right, Young Turks rad, but they kind of they turned into an echo chamber really, really quickly over the last like 3 years, especially 2 to 3 years. So yeah, I could see being a part of that and wanting to get the fuck out from it, because it's just kind of it turns into a toxic environment when everybody's just repeating one another. So
I know that this is complete speculation, because there's no way of knowing for sure unless like Jank just out and told us. But I speculate that the Young Turks' shifts, or maybe like I think they've always been pretty lefty, but their swing way into the progressive like nutcase sphere probably has a lot to do with money, because there's like this thing where Larry King was also on the Rubin Report, and Larry King he knows a little bit about journalism.
Yeah.
He's been on the block a bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
He was talking about how one of the problems with new media is that one of the challenges it faces essentially is that because it's so grassroots and small, it's actually more susceptible to financial, financial sort of coercion.
Yeah, influence.
Yeah, than like bigger ones. Even though obviously the mainstream media is pretty much bought too.
Right.
But the smaller groups, and the thing is with the smaller media, and I wouldn't really say that Young Turks is small. I know that they keep saying it, but no, man. Like, they have millions of people watching. That's like Al Jazeera. They do the same thing. They're like, oh, yeah, we're tiny. But no. You guys are huge. I mean, stop lying.
Tiny when you compare them to like something like NBC or MSNBC or Fox. I mean, they're tiny in that regard. But as far as being small and independent or whatever, get the fuck out, please.
Yeah. Yeah, but when you put it in that way, I think, and I mean this is total speculation, like I said, the Young Turks are probably like, I think that they're backed by people.
Yeah, they ain't hurt. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and then those people are basically saying, this is what we want you to talk about. And one of the ways you can tell is because of the way they report on every story. If it's not a story that has an objective, this is what happened, which, by the way, the Young Turks themselves, they don't really do any journalism. What they do...
No, it's totally op-ed.
Yeah, well, what they do, aside from that, what they mainly do is they basically regurgitate other articles that they found somewhere else. And then they just regurgitate them, and they're usually from the places that they want to go. So, they go to HuffPo, they go to Salon, they go to, The Guardian, and then they regurgitate those stories, and then they talk about their opinions about them. And if you watch it, there's like a pattern. They always bring up the story, then they find a way to make it about hating white people, hating men, hating the rich, hating Republicans. They tell you by the end of it, you're going to vote for Bernie Sanders. You have to make if you're a white person, you have to check your privilege. Like they have like a pattern that they work in. And I think
they got a bunch of boxes they check off to get.
Exactly. They have like a box, a checklist, and they're like, okay, we got to make sure we get these things across by the time we're done with this video. And I think that it's stuff like that Dave Rubin was not happy with, because I noticed that when he's on his show, one of the things that he always talks about is he wants to be able to criticize the left because he is on the left, and he, as someone who's on that side, he thinks it's important to do that. And I agree with him, because I'm also on the left in many ways. But I think that if you can't criticize your own, how you expect it to get better? Right. You got to call out the crazies, And actually, Steven Crowder does the same thing on the right. So they've actually, when I think Dave Rubin had Crowder on, they don't agree with each other on a lot of stuff, but they were able to maintain a civil discourse, and by the time it was over, they actually had a better understanding of where the other person was coming from. And so it turned out that many of these issues that are often so polarized are very nuanced and complex, and it makes sense that you would have people that are on one side of it versus the other.
Yeah, well, the thing with the Young Turks is one of the things that I noticed. I mean, there's a whole laundry list of stuff that we could go into, and we're getting away from the initial point, but is that they have created a group of sacred cows. They have made their own set of deities in the left, and you can't go after them. And I think that was one of the problems that Rubin had, was when he would try and be a dissenting voice, Jank would do his, you're crazy, blah, 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 you don't know what you're talking about, I'm a bloviating fat ass, blah, blah, blah,
yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Go make me a sandwich, blah, you owe your life to feminism, blah, 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 fucking doing that fucking routine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so they have created a standard whereby they don't want dissent. They are not discerning news people. They are simply a left echo chamber, plain and simple, And I am on the left. I am very firmly entrenched in the left. And I know that if you can't fucking point out the fucked up things your own party's doing, then you got problems. Then you're not left or right. You're a fucking ideologue. You're a totalitarian. You're an authoritarian. You're just there to tell people what to do. You're not telling people like, hey, there's a problem here. We need to fix it. Let's go about these things, trying to find ways to find solutions. It's just and that's kind of like where I saw like when I, it's like kind of unsubbed and walked away from the Turks when they started just being that kind of way, where they started holding up these sacred cows, and they're just like, oh no, never question Al Gore or anybody else. It's just whoever the person in the moment is at that particular time. So so I mean it's like again it's like we can go down that road. It's like, well, I don't agree with Crowder on a lot of things, but yeah, he's like the times that I have seen him speak, it's been great, because he does take the piss out of people. He's like, there's a problem here, it's my party, but there's a problem here, and I'm going to point it out because that's what we have to do. So
yeah. And again, what does it say that people like Jodie Foster have basically come out and she's basically like, look, I was just talking to my friend, the other director. She made Across the Universe. Do you know that movie? It was like the Beatles musical one.
No.
Oh, you don't know? Well, she directed that. Her name is Julie Taymor, and they were both like, she directed a couple of other pretty good movies too.
Okay.
And they were basically like, look, we're sick of this, women are hard done by in Hollywood bullshit. I'm and because Jodie Foster's directing now too.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, I'm a director, and I just make the movies I want to make, and I just make, I just roll up my sleeves and get the shit done. You guys stop fucking whining,
You know what, though? To be fair, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
Foster she's kind of a very specific case, because she's one of the people that you could kind of look at and point to and say, well, she made it. She got her cut of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
So she has a different view of things. But on the other hand, though, I largely agree with her. It's just like I think it's more a matter of perception than reality in a lot of cases. But I think it's like, but again, though, it's like, just to play devil's advocate, though, she has been in the business a long time. She has paid her dues, as it were. She's gotten her money, and she's in a place where she can kind of say that without too much. Well, trouble.
I think that what you're touching on there is the more important point. Not that I dismiss that. I think that you're right. Jodie Foster paid her dues. She worked her ass off. She made a name for herself.
She worked her ass off.
She did it on her own. And so when she got into a place where she could make that statement without fear of repercussion, because somebody that's just like coming up, I think, in Hollywood or wherever, I would say Hollywood or in media, they're not going to be able to make that criticism. They're not going to be able to say, essentially what Jodie Foster is saying is, this brand of feminism that you guys are spouting I find to be useless, if not outright bullshit, because I did this myself. I did this.
Right.
I made myself a name. I worked hard and did these things, you know. And for people like that there are just people that just don't have the will, you know.
Yeah.
They might be talented and attractive. I mean, I wouldn't doubt Famke Janssen, for example, because I'm looking at her face right now. She is, you know, attractive, but is she a great actress? Is she Jodie Foster level? No. I think that, you know, there are people who make it because they look good and they're good enough, and then there are people who don't use those like Jodie Foster. They just have to be good actresses. They just have to be good.
Right.
And so when she made it on her own merit, despite the fact that she can probably age and continue to get work, whereas, you know, many others, they might get to a point where they're not profitable anymore, maybe because of their looks or because they lose their, you know, I don't know, like whatever it is that they had from their youth, you know. I don't expect that we're going to see Robert Pattinson, who played, you know, Edward. I don't think we're going to see him in his 60s doing like a remake of Ben-Hur. I just don't expect that, you know. I think he got the role because he was pretty, you know. That's basically it.
He was a model,
So,
just like Famke Janssen was a model,
yeah.
and that's how she got her start because she was attractive.
Exactly.
And,
So,
like
you know,
I said, but whereas Jodie Foster was actually honing her craft, and she's actually a great actress and a writer and a director. She's, you know, she's kind of a for lack of a better way to put it, she's kind of a triple threat. You know, she's got the what do you call it? The stones, as it were. You know, so yeah.
cojones is what
Yeah.
we call it.
Yeah, there you go.
Jodie Foster has the broveries to get it done.
Rovery.
I mean, apparently, and you know, she's not. I noticed that this, like, there's probably a number of people in Hollywood that feel the same way that she does about all this ideological pushing that goes on, but they either stay quiet about it because they do have some concerns that it's going to affect their career, which I'm sure is true, or they're just so indifferent that they just don't bring it up, or they are pretty vocal. I think that guys like, you know, Stallone has talked about it, and James Woods. Have you ever seen James Woods' Twitter? That guy goes after liberals like nobody's business, but he's mainly talking about the special snowflakes, you know, not just in general. And Clint Eastwood too. But Clint Eastwood is, again, like Jodie Foster. He's in a position where he's like, well, I'm going to say whatever the fuck I want because you can't hurt me.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't touch me,
kinda,
you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. And then Stephen Fry, I was pretty surprised, but this is the thing about Stephen Fry. Did you see the Dave Rubin thing? Either of you guys with Stephen Fry?
No,
Oh yeah. I considered for a long time saying something about it, but I didn't.
Well, this is the thing about the Stephen Fry interview, which I thought was great, especially where he says self-pity is the ugliest of emotions. I thought that was brilliant. And of course, when he says it, it just sounds so much more profound. But it's just his sort of, is it posh? He's just definitely got like a posh sound. But with Stephen Fry, though, I think that if he wasn't attacked on Twitter, would he have said this? Because I wonder, because the thing is that, you know, first he made a joke on Twitter, and then he was attacked by social justice warriors on Twitter, and then he came out and spoke. But I wonder if he would have beforehand. I wonder if he was already on that path.
Oh, he absolutely has.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you see him like, what was it, the Big Think that he did? Have you ever seen that?
Yes.
He talks about, oh God, I forget
being
the context
offended.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
but he's spoken about these things for years, though. So he's very much been in it, as it were, for a while. I mean, he's seen the ugliness and the pettiness of it for a long time. So he absolutely has been talking about this kind of stuff and would continue to, hopefully. And and it's great because he is a voice that holds power. Because he does speak up about these kind of things. It's like people know where he's coming from, and he speaks with authority and with integrity, and because he's right. So it's kind of hard to look at him and be like, shut the fuck up, Fry. You don't know what you're talking about. The guy's He's very well reasoned, and he knows what he's talking about. So yeah, it's kind of he's
Yeah.
been there.
When
and done
there's
that.
when there's like 10 different headlines, all going with a variation of some kind of hysterical straw man of what he said, like Fry says, the sexual abuse victims should grow up or something. It reaches a point where even the average reader sort of they can see that the press are the idiots in this. The press are becoming the story themselves because they can't help themselves anymore. They're not even trying to do journalism.
Yeah.
They're just spinning whatever fucking virtue signal they can do, even when it's Fry. Like, Fry's more powerful than you guys. Do you not see? I know that there could be 50 different publications, and they're still not. Fry's the king of Twitter. You don't know who you're fucking with now.
This is true. Well, although he left Twitter, I
yeah.
don't know if he's going to come back, but he left Twitter, I believe. Isn't that right?
Yeah, he did.
He's on a crusade, I tell you. He'll return.
Yes. Long live the Fry. And then on top of that, if I take a step out of the culture war, because I mean we've been doing this on Honey Badger Radio in many ways since the beginning. So I mean before I was here, because just talking about men's rights was something that either the press and like Futrell, Man Boobs or whatever, and people like that would just have a field day misrepresenting, strawmanning, destroying MRAs. They've been coming after them from before I even knew they existed. And when I look at the timeline, it's probably I'm sure it goes way before that too, with other groups or people of certain interests. But when I look at everything on a timeline outside of that, and I see how, especially when you look at when I think the conversation started to grow, which is probably around the time of Gamergate, but where you have all these people that otherwise had no interest in politics, or at least they didn't bring it into sort of like large public sphere, as in the gaming culture and stuff, and they start doing that, and they start criticizing the press, and then you have all these other people who have been either in the past silenced, or they were just like generally not really, no one had heard of them. I mean, I didn't know who Milo Yiannopoulos was before Gamergate started. And before that, he was just this, I don't know, like a small-time Breitbart guy, and I didn't even know about the Breitbart website. And then this happens, and now he's like one of the biggest names in Gamergate, and everyone knows and they fear him. Well, if you're a social justice warrior, you do. Because just him showing up at your school is triggering, right? And people like him and Christina Hoff Sommers, and then you got then it grew from there. You had more people that had their own internet media spaces, like Steven Crowder and Dave Rubin, who started something, and now Gad Sad is talking about it, and he's appearing on Dave Rubin, and Karen has been on there, and then they made like a Gamergate episode on a fucking Special Victims Unit TV show or whatever. And it just keeps growing and growing. And I think it has become kind of like this. It's just this wonder to watch how big it's gotten. Now Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins and Stephen Fry, as I said, and Larry King are talking about it.
Well, yeah, because these are much bigger ideas, though. These are much bigger problems. They aren't localized. We're talking about things that are affecting large, diverse groups of people. And that's why you see all these kind of very different, very disparate groups coming together under this umbrella, or for the same cause, if you will. Because these aren't just things that affect you and I and Mike, or the Honey Badgers, or Gad Sad, or whoever it is. Like, these are things that are universally a problem, that are becoming a problem through the proliferation of technology and the ease of getting your voice out there. Like things like YouTube and Twitter, especially, have given people a voice, and in a lot of cases, the people that now have a voice are fucking insane. So it's a problem that the light has shone on it very, very starkly because of these kind of things, because of the idea that anybody can talk and anybody can get out there and make a video or make a tweet or make a hashtag and get it going. I mean, hell, Suey Park helped trend a hashtag, so anybody can fucking do it. It's just a matter of, if the kind of things that you're saying, and if you're hitting the right notes for that particular kind of retard that's going to be like, oh, that's the thing that I care about and I'm upset about. And da, 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 da. So yeah, I mean, there's universal appeals, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a very localized thing. It's all over the place. So.
And yeah, this is like it's been snowballing, and not only is it big on the side of people like Milo and us. Mike, were you going to say something? Or okay, I thought I heard your voice.
I was muted.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That was either upside your head or it was Google.
It was in my head. I think it may have been in my head. Or is this Famke whispering in my ear? And then, but you have it also coming from the other side, where you have, the people who stand to oppose them, and they're to oppose these, people like cultural libertarians or whatever you want to call it, and they're actually calling attention to it, like MTV and like, Brawless and the other show, was it Decoded? When they talk about social justice warriors and freedom of speech so loudly, and they make such ridiculous arguments. It actually makes people curious about where it's coming from. And when the Young Turks try to, sweep Karen under the rug, they actually make people curious about it. I think that one of the biggest mistakes they made was putting Karen on the show. At least not for us, for them, because. And not only is that even being talked about in circles like, like I said, in the media and with actors and with people who have already been having these discussions, but even people who originally had no interest in these things, like atheists, that maybe they just do atheist channel. Like there's this one guy I like to watch. His real name is Devin Tracy, and his channel is Atheism is Unstoppable. And normally he just talks about atheism, but all of this stuff around silencing people's voices, discussing the truth about Islam and Black Lives Matter and stuff, has made him become much more vocal on those fronts. And it's almost like he can't ignore it because, it almost like supersedes like arguing with Christians about creationism at this point, because this is such a much more hot button topic, but also a much more important one. It's affecting our kids and our kids' kids if we don't say something. And I think
I've never met a creationist. I've probably met someone who's quietly a creationist, but I've never met anyone who argues like a fucking crazy person over the Bible. I understand they exist in the Bible Belt in the States. I realized that, and I heard about them. When I was looking into the atheist scene, and I thought, wow, it must be fucked up arguing with people like that. I'm glad we don't have anyone like that over here. And then,
no, it definitely is.
And then, Jesus, there may not be any mad creationists, but like a good fraction of the people I've met argue in that exact way about feminism. Yeah. What does that say about the kind of problem we have?
Well, another part of this too, I think, is that when we're talking about, you brought up a lot of different things there with like atheism and creationism and all these other kind of things that have been going on for a long time, is that people have become, it's like part of having to survive in the climate today, with being inundated by media all the time in our lives, is that you have to mute a lot of the noise that's going on. And this is just, it's totally anecdotal here. It's just something I've noticed, I guess, is that there's so much, like, when we're talking about, like, atheism or creationism or things of that nature, these are discussions that have been going on for a pretty long time. And I think people have kind of muted those in their minds, or in their, they've kind of pushed those to the side because, people have been talking about these for years, it's not as important. But then you have this whole new bout of new and interesting things that are popping up that are really kind of taking the mainstream focus, I guess you could say. At least that's kind of what it looks like to me anyway, in certain aspects. So that's why it feels like a lot of this stuff is kind of blown up, because it's the hot new issue, it's the new hot button thing that's going on right now. So
I think it's partly that, but I also think that, like, with the cases of specifically with atheists that often make videos criticizing, they used to, because I remember, like, even like TJ and some of the other prominent atheist YouTubers, they would spend so much of their time arguing against just like crazy ass Christians that are just so fringe and ridiculous that I wonder if it's even a good use of their time. However, I wouldn't tell them they can or cannot do that. But it didn't really interest me that much. But when you look at what's going on now, I think that part of what's happening is that these same people are like, wait a minute, okay. So obviously there are people out there that believe the Earth is 6,000 years old and that the devil planted, fossils to trick people or whatever. But you know what? As stupid as that is and as crazy as that sounds, I don't think that's as dangerous as these people over here that are working in academia, that are essentially conditioning students to believe in crazy ass social science shit that that doesn't real, that these people on Tumblr that are like spreading all this bullshit, and then people in academia and people in the media are plucking at it and using it. And I don't just mean like the rags like BuzzFeed and the Young Turks and AJ Plus, but I mean like the people, the places that people are supposed to respect, like the New York Times and these like larger spaces. That seems like it needs attention. Imagine if the New York Times started posting articles about the Earth being 6,000 years old. Then you'll be like, okay, this is a problem we need to address because this isn't true. Now they're not going to post that because we mostly universally agree that that's a bullshit argument, and it wouldn't. It almost isn't even worth arguing against, right?
Yeah, it doesn't merit the time.
Yeah, but like all this stuff about rape culture and college campuses and toxic masculinity and white supremacy and all this other stuff that isn't being talked about in a balanced way to find out what the truth is or where the facts are at, but instead they're just being pitched like so much propaganda, and all of this like it being okay with silencing people because you don't like their views and talking about safe spaces and controlling essentially what information people get. I think that's far more serious, and I think that these areas like the atheist communities are starting to actually address essentially fight the war on the front that is probably the weakest right now, if you think about it, right? Like, I look at it this way. I think there are crazy people on the left and there are crazy people on the right. And if you have to keep them like in their you don't want to change, you don't need to change their minds, because once you're like devoted to an idea, there's no changing it really. But what you want to do is you want to keep them from getting too much ground where they like convince or otherwise plant their seeds of bullshit in the minds of people that either don't have a lot of information or they're on the fence. So you at least want to like have counter arguments, not silence them, but have good containment, right?
Containment through education, though, not just silencing people.
We've been directing energy at the right for the longest time, and it's to the point now where it's really relatively well contained. There are still nut jobs over there for sure, but we're not really going to be able to stop them. But while we've been focusing on that, people coming from the other direction that we haven't been paying attention to. And I know that it can be really easy to miss because it's that stuff that sounds really good when you hear it, but until you exercise some real critical thought, that shit can be really, really viral. And the social media thing, which the left has always been better at doing than the right, is actually makes it harder to fight against. That's how you get all this shit. And so I'm really glad that there are more people in that they're not necessarily Gamergate, they're not necessarily MRAs, they're not necessarily anti-feminists, they're not necessarily Republicans, or not necessarily Democrats or libertarians or anarchists or creationists or monarchists or whatever. They don't necessarily belong to a specific group. They're just people that are like, wait, that's bullshit, and it just so happens to be coming from this direction, And yeah, some of them are doing it because maybe they want to plant a flag of their own. Maybe they see it as an opportunity to push their ideas. But I think that when you put that in the face of the entire group of people who are pushing against it, that's not going to stand either. Because people are really being sick of being told what to do, right? So they're not going to take it from somebody else on the opposite side either. So I don't know, but I am really glad to see it. Anybody have any more thoughts about that? Am I off?
Moon landing was a hoax.
Moonlighting was a hoax?
Yep, moon landing was a hoax.
The moon landing was a hoax.
The moon landing.
For some reason, I thought you said moonlighting, and I was like, you mean with Bruce Willis?
Yeah, with Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis? Yeah, that's a hoax. Whatever, man. That was a great show. I loved Moonlighting.
It was a good show. That was when Bruce Willis had hair. And he was doing those Seagram's wine cooler commercials.
Oh, man. Fuck yeah. Oh, those are the days we're old.
Those were the days. Life was so simple back then.
Oh, you know, we've gotten so far away from the original video, though. There was a point that well, maybe not a point, but something I wanted to say is like, and again, this is kind of anecdotal and just part of my own experience. The thing that I find that's kind of interesting too is the way the dynamics of protest have changed. When I was like back in the 80s and the 90s, when I used to go to protest in the DC and Virginia area where I'm from, I'm doxxed. Woo. Anyway, you generally didn't see things like in that video that Crowder and Milo and Hoff Summers. You generally didn't see things like that. That was definitely the exception and not the rule. Whereas today, that is almost a foregone conclusion that something like that is going to happen. The way things happened in the past was, and I don't know if this is just a function of universities and the way they handle these things now, where they feel like they can't tell people to shut the fuck up. But like back in the day, they would have escorted those people out of the auditorium. They would have taken them and said, "You have to leave." Because and the way we would do it was we would be outside a venue. And we'd be doing whatever, talking to people, doing whatever. But now they're moving these things inside the venues, and they're becoming much more aggressive, and they're becoming much more brash and emboldened. And while a part of me, it's just like I grew up in the punk scene, and a part of me is like, yeah, fuck them, throw them the finger. But then the other part of me that's more rational, that's just not like burn it all down and fuck everything, is like, okay, this isn't helping. This not only does it not help you and the thing that you're trying to show people, but it doesn't help anybody. I mean, it's like taking away people's speech is not making your speech stronger. And I don't think these people, the people that are in the audience saying "fuck you, you're a cunt," blah blah blah, this, that, and the other, I don't think these people really understand that. It's just they're not doing anything to help themselves.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole dynamic of protest has changed so much where it's gotten. I mean, this is gonna sound really fucking weird, but it's gotten kind of ugly. It's lost a bit of its civility. Whereas when I was growing up, when I was doing protest in my my teens and my 20s, we had the idea that our words and our ideas could be the change, and that we did. It's like, our ideas and our words were loud enough that we didn't have to turn into these wailing, petulant, spoiled brat children crying and fucking having hug boxes and all this other stuff. Granted, those concepts really didn't exist back then, but still, it was a much different climate. And I think it's not really doing these people any favors. And I kind of, in one breath, I'm kind of like, well, let them keep doing it and make themselves look like fucking morons, because the quicker they are shown to be the idiots that they are, the quicker they'll go away. But on the other hand, though, this sets a precedent, and this creates a situation whereby people see this as the norm when they keep seeing these kind of things, and then you keep degrading and degrading and degrading to the point where it's just like, at some point, you're going to have people throwing piss on Lauren Southern, or somebody attacking somebody, and it's just like, again, this is not a war of words. This is bullying techniques. That's what this is. This isn't about ideas anymore. It just becomes about power and who can scream louder. It's just flat out. It's just fucking bullying, is what it is. So, and that's not really helping anybody. That's not what this is about, and it shouldn't be about anyway, in my mind anyway. Because if you're looking to change things, let your ideas be that change. Let your ideas be loud enough that they precipitate people changing their minds and being like, oh wait, you're right. Let that be the revelation, not the fact that you punched somebody, or you threw piss on them, or you screamed so loud that they couldn't talk. So yeah, it's just the whole situation that's going on now is pretty fucking unsavory. It's disturbing as somebody who believes in ideas being strong enough that they can make change. It's like that whole idea is it's going away right now. Frankly, it's dying. And that's the thing I find most disturbing about what's going on nowadays. So, yeah.
Yeah. Real quick before I make another point, earlier you said burn it all down and fuck everything. You know, that's dangerous because you could catch something, and chlamydia is everywhere. So I wouldn't go around fucking everything. I'm just saying, be a little bit discerning about where you put your bean.
Chlamydia is symptomless in men, so what's the problem?
Oh, well.
Oh. Well, there you go.
It's a little germ threat. It'll make your woman sterile, so she'll never have your babies, but you'll be fine.
Well, I'm not seeing the downside right now.
To get chlamydia and fuck people. I'm joking entirely. I would never encourage this.
But he's not saying that he would absolutely never not encourage it. And you can't follow that either.
Yeah, I got nothing.
And then try AIDS. It works for Jenny.
Yeah, I think with AIDS, you have like 10 years of just like whatever the fuck you want. Because you don't know if you don't get tested.
Yeah, I'm on this great weight loss program. It's called AIDS. Have you heard about it?
You're a white male.
Go on. Yeah, go on.
But I think that one other point is I noticed that I think this is going to continue to escalate. I suspect that as Dave Rubin's going to have guests on every week, and he's going to keep talking about this stuff. I saw when he had Gad Sad on, he had him on with another guest, I believe, and they're going to start doing some kind of collective attempt to build a new sort of intellectual space, I suppose, for people who are think, I guess, more like Gad Sad in terms of like their beliefs and the regressive left and stuff. And he's going to continue to have guests on every week, and Crowder's going to, and Milo and us and other people. But I think that as we move closer and closer to November, I think this is actually only going to get worse as we approach Election Day. And I don't mean to make the United States the center of everything. Sorry about my dog. I don't mean to make the United States the center of everything, but I do think that there's a relationship between what's going on in universities and all these kids are being taught to protest, and and what's going on with the election and what's going on in the media. I don't think it's an accident. I think that these things are related, and I think that before Milo's Dangerous Faggot tour is over, there will likely be an actual event of violence. And it will probably come towards Milo's side from university. I hope so. Those of you guys who are, going to be where Milo's at, if you're listening, no matter what happens, do not throw the first punch, because if you do, you lose. I think that it's very important not to escalate into assault. So, but I have a feeling that before he's done, something like that's going to happen. And when it does.
We saw that happen with Crowder a couple of years back, where he was in D.C. at a rally and some guy sucker punched him.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, maybe it's more than a few years ago, but yeah, there's a video on YouTube of Crowder's talking to these guys, and they're getting all fucking uppity with him, and one of them just hauls off and fucking smacks the shit out of him, and he's just kind of like, whoa, he doesn't fight back even. So I give him props for that, because he rightfully could have kicked the living fuck out of the dude that hit him too. I mean, because Crowder ain't no teeny little shrieking violet, And this dude was a very small man, and Crowder probably could have beat the living fuck out of him. But yeah, he pulled back. He's like, nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it.
Oh no, so, that's because the thing is, this guy who took a swing at Crowder, he was nobody, right?
Yeah, it's just some dude in a crowd.
Yeah, I think that Crowder would have hurt himself more if he would have hit him back. Yeah, I mean, and I think that was probably just, he was being the bigger man there.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing is, oh shit, I just lost it. Fucking dog. She distracted me. Fucking dog. No, I can't remember. It doesn't matter now. I lost it. It's gone. I hate it when that happens.
Sorry.
No, you didn't do anything. It's fine. Yeah, it's just this is just what we're looking at, and I think it's really interesting though how big this has gotten, and I think it's just going to get bigger. And there's a part of me that's anxious, because I hope nothing really bad happens, but like I wouldn't have thought Lauren Southern would get piss poured on her. If it is pissed, it's still not really like we're not really sure that that's what it was, but I would never have thought that would have happened to her. That somebody could have justified that, that kind of behavior to themselves, because somebody had to say, this is okay, I'm going to do this because what she's saying makes me uncomfortable. Or that, some kid in a hallway gets grabbed because he has dreadlocks, or that Melissa Click would call for some muscle to remove a reporter even though she is a fucking communications professor and she understands the way the First Amendment works. And there are incidents after incident after incident. Do you remember there was like another college protest where everyone was taking turns on the megaphone, and they brought out like this, one of them was like this Chinese girl, and she was talking about how minorities can be racist, and she was giving an example of her experience, and everyone's face just turned white, like they were like, you did not just say that, and it was like she immediately regretted her decision, and I'm watching this and I'm like, this is the way that they work, the way they operate. Yeah, that's awful. Oh, and that was the thing. You also get people, that I don't agree with everything they say, but people like Ben Shapiro, people like I don't know, like everybody's talking about this stuff now, and I'm really interested to see where this goes, but I am pretty excited that this conversation is happening. And in many ways, I feel like I saw it start from something so small.
Well, the thing that worried me a lot was if you look at David Tiller, Dr. David Tiller, and you see what happened in that situation.
Oh, Joe Rogan, that was the one I was trying to remember. Oh. Joe Rogan's doing it now too.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
But go ahead, David Tiller.
Oh, and for those who don't know who David Tiller is, David Tiller was a abortion doctor, and he was murdered. And it was largely attributed to people like Bill O'Reilly and Fox News, who would constantly beat this drum about Tiller the baby killer, Tiller the baby killer. That was his thing, and he was just mercilessly just going on and on about this. And it got to a point where some fucking fruitcake, whose name I don't remember and don't really care about, who was this extremist, this Christian extremist, fucking killed a man. He murdered this man. Just because he didn't believe the same thing that he believed, and this is the kind of thing we see play out. We've seen it played out in other countries where people use religion as their justification for things, for doing these horrific acts. Whatever religion that is, Christianity, Islam, whatever. But we see people that are instigating, that are pushing these buttons, seemingly trying to get people to react to them by creating these, this deafening echo of rhetoric. It's like, and one of the examples that I wanted to get at was like, we saw Arthur Chu with this ends tonight. And when he was like, doing all these very foreboding tweets and all this kind of stuff. And, as we've seen, like throughout the whole Gamergate thing, there are a lot of people that aren't exactly, what's the word I'm looking for, stable on that side. So there is the possibility that when you have these people like Arthur Chu or Bill, what's his fucking nuts, Bill O'Reilly, or whoever it is, whoever these voices are that are opinion makers, that are people who are the ones that are really standing out in these groups, that when they keep doing these kind of things, that it is going to get to be more than somebody allegedly throwing piss on somebody, but somebody actually being hurt. And that's the thing that scares the fuck out of me, is because when things, like at the height of Gamergate, when things were getting really, really nasty and there were people just spouting all this fucking rhetoric, I was absolutely sure.
Remember the guy who I remember the guy who was talking about all Gamergaters need to be like put in gas chambers or something like that. It was like,
yeah,
do you remember that guy? Yeah, I think it was Jodie Tate was his name.
Oh, Tate. Oh, yeah, no. God, that's a whole nother discussion altogether. But yeah,
no, I know, but that's just an example of the kind of rhetoric that was going around. Yeah,
precisely. But it's like it's to the point where like we're seeing this kind of thing grow. Like you were talking about, like something's probably going to happen in a Milo event, and it goes from people talking shit on Twitter to bomb threats being called in to actual violence, and that's the thing. That's the thing that really kind of like that really legitimately worried me for a long time, that somebody was actually going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as much as I'm kind of like fuck the man, burn it all down, there's also a part of me that is.
Now you're talking about fucking men.
Yes, fucking man. Well, we're talking about Milo.
I think you can. I don't know if you can get chlamydia. That you might be able to.
It was like you get butt babies. I mean, but yeah, that's another thing altogether. But yeah, it's like but my kind of the way I'm coming at things is I want to find solutions. I actually care about the discussions, and I don't want people to get hurt. I don't care which side you're on. I don't want people getting hurt because it doesn't help anything. It's just like all that does is you hurt somebody. It's like they say, an eye for an eye, that's great and all, but the fact is that when you take out somebody's eye, that's going to piss them off, and then they're going to take that fucking anger and they're going to put that onto somebody else. And that doesn't really do anything. It's not terribly constructive, as we've seen. So, yeah, and I've lost my point.
No, I think that was fine. I think we're just going to wrap it up now, but I do want to throw something else out there. I've included a poll in this Polecast, or Polecat Cast. So the poll is, I know there's been a lot of videos going around discussing the ethics and morality and whether it's a good idea or a bad idea regarding Sargon's current, he's doing a petition to essentially not remove, but supposedly, put a hold on teaching social justice in university, to essentially go through it with a fine-tooth comb to see if it's legit, whatever, challenge it. But essentially he's doing it to get a consensus, to see how many people think that social justice does not belong in university, essentially, or at least in its current state, right? So I've included a poll, and I wanted to ask our listeners what you guys think. So please take the poll. I'm just curious whether or not Sargon is right or wrong. It seems like there were, a lot of people that I follow, we're pretty split on that. So, and I think Mike just made a video about it himself, and so
I'm for it. I'm sarcastically for. I'm heavily sarcastically for it, but I'm for it. But it's much simpler than yes or no. There's a big debate to go into. A bold move has got to be made, and a bold move is going to look sort of counterintuitive and possibly a little bit bossy. So we just need to talk it out amongst ourselves, don't we?
Ban bossy. Ban bossy.
Ban 2. Is it too bossy? Holy shit.
Oh my.
But yeah, so yeah, let us know in the poll, and if you want to leave a comment about that, I always look at them, please. And another thing, if you see any choice bits out of this video that you like, put a timestamp in your comment and then respond to it. Let us know that you like it and what your thoughts were. Give us your opinions on the Melissa Click story, the Famke Janssen controversy, as well as this sort of main topic about, has this sort of counterculture that's rising up, that's actually giving voice to people and probably inspiring people to speak out more, that always felt this way but didn't want to say anything until it was safer, which I think what's happening with people like Larry King, for example. Yeah, but give us your thoughts on that as well. And well, I mean, aside from that, I guess we'll see you on the next Polecast. I want to thank Mike and Scott for joining me, and Hannah, you are dead to us. And
but I like him dead.
But perhaps I will resurrect her for the next show. So,
Zombie Hannah, I like it.
Well, actually, that's actually a thing. I think there's a Zombie Hannah.
Is it?
It was she was big into costuming, and one of her profile pictures is her as Samara from The Ring. Right. So in many ways, it's like a Zombie Hannah. But I put the poll in. I don't know why I didn't go through. I'll try again. I'll just go ahead and put it in now. But thanks, guys, and I'll talk to you next time.